Gary, Pundit of the Year, congratulations. Just going to talk to you about women's football. What do you think of the growth of women's football? Have you seen it grow over the years?
Oh, absolutely. I think you go back 25, 30 years and you think of it having very sort of limited exposure, whereas now obviously it's getting a lot more. I think the success of the England team in the last few years has helped greatly. You think of the league now, and the standard that's actually exists is high, and I think it should be super fair. I think you think about the Premier League now, it should be an actual obligation of all Premier League clubs to have a women's team. Actually, with Salford, our own club, we're going to start a women's team next season because we think it's really important to encourage participation and also to promote sort of women's football. So from our point of view, obviously being with England as a coach for 4 years and sort of living at times in sort of St George's Park and seeing the women's team play, I think it's a high standard than it ever has been before. Higher levels of professionalism, high levels of exposure, and it's growing and needs to grow more.
And if you want to sign me for Salford, you can. I do come at a price, but we'll negotiate that later. Oh, pretty expensive. I mean, I'm sure we can come to an agreement. But yeah, more teams now in the Women's League are professional. How important is it? I mean, obviously you were training day in, day out, and originally teams were, the top players were having to work a full day and then train. How much of a benefit is it of them now being full-time professionals?
Usually beneficial. I've been through it with my sister in the last 10, 15 years, 20 years in netball, whereas obviously she's the England netball coach now, and they were part-time up until I think it was 2, 3, 4 years ago, and now they've got central contracts, they're more professional, there's a Super League, and same exactly with women's football. You have to train every single day, you have to dedicate your whole life to it to really be at the best that you can be at anything, not just sport. So absolutely it's correct that its professionalism kicks in to the women's game, and I think ultimately you're going to see a big improvement because of that. It's just reality. You kick a ball 20 times a day or 100 times a day or 100 times every day or 100 times twice a week. You're going to be a lot better if you do it 100 times every single day rather than 20 times on a night, fitting it in between jobs where you really focuses on other jobs. And we've just gone actually professional this year with Salford City, our football club, from part-time last year, where lads were sort of having to chase away from games at 9:30, 10 at night to get to the night job, work till 5 in the morning, get up and then maybe train the next day in the evening again. And thinking, in terms of the actual performance you can get out of, male and female sportsmen who are actually having to do a full-time job as well, it's far less than it would be if they were professional and full-time. So it's critically important that there is investment into full-time sport, and obviously now I think with the professionalism, you see what obviously Manchester City are doing near to where, in Manchester around us. It's amazing what's happening there, really.
And talking of Manchester City, both Manchester City and Chelsea ladies are in the quarter-final of the Champions League. How important is that they go far in the competition for women's football?
It's vitally important. I think ultimately, that's always the true measure of any football team, of any sports team, is playing in the biggest and best competitions and seeing how you fare. I think from our point of view, when I was at United, we always think that the Premier League obviously is the bread and butter, but to really test yourselves, to play against the best in Europe. But I think actually to start, obviously, thinking about the English teams doing well on the international stage is critical in the women's game and in the male game as well. I think we've suffered far too much for too long, and I think with regards to the women's game, they've done better in the competitions over the last few years than the men have.
And England are looking to try and host the Euros in this country. How much of an impact could that have?
Huge impact. I think that, to be fair, go back to Euro 96, which was the last time we had a tournament in this country, and it was just the most incredible time. But you can engage with the whole country in terms of a festival, really, and I think ultimately it'll bring everybody together. It's critical. I think England's a great country for a tournament because of travel. It's you think about some of the big countries in Europe whereby it's difficult to travel around, let's say Russia this summer for the World Cup, or next summer, should I say, for the World Cup. So it's a fantastic thing for England. It will help promote and give exposure. It'll mean that a lot of people become more aware. Which I think is still participation is the big thing, and sort of removing the stigma that's attached to sort of women playing football, and that's happening more and more.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.